The United States economy is officially in a recession. We just got the brand new GDP data from Q2 and it was negative. That is 2 consecutive quarters of negative GDP growth, which meets the technical definition of a recession. Now, many of you have probably heard the White House and other people in positions of power and influence start to gaslight the American people on what actually defines a recession. Regardless of what they say, professional market participants and sophisticated investors all agree 2 consecutive quarters of negative GDP growth means that we are in a recession. Now, this is absolutely incredible because economists and market forecasters, they actually were predicting positive GDP growth. It's understandable when they make a mistake and they don't actually nail it and they're off by a few percentage points. But to think that it's going to be positive and it ends up being negative, that's outright asinine. Now, of course, we also know that the Federal Reserve has made 2 major mistakes over the last 12 months. First, they were conducting quantitative easing and holding interest rates artificially low when inflation was already over 7% last year. Now, the Federal Reserve has been hiking interest rates as we headed into a recession. In both scenarios, the Federal Reserve has been behind the curve. Now, I'm not one of the conspiracy theorists. I don't think that there's some master plan for a controlled demolition of the American economy. I actually think that the Federal Reserve, economists, and market forecasters, they're trying to do the right thing. It's more of a Hanlon's razor situation. Don't assign malice to something that can simply be explained by ignorance. But that doesn't change the fact that we have high inflation in America. It's at a 40-year high. And now we're also in a recession. Hello, stagflation. In these scenarios, it is a lose-lose. If the Fed does not act, we will continue to have persistently high inflation. If the Fed destroys demand, as they've outlined as their goal, we will head deeper and deeper into a recession. Ultimately, the Federal Reserve is going to have to capitulate in one direction or the other. My guess is that the Federal Reserve will capitulate. They will have to mitigate the recession and just let people live with high inflation. That's not a great solution, but it's the best of the worst possible solutions. Ultimately, the US economy is in a very perplexing and unique situation. We still have pretty strong employment and consumer spending has not fallen. But we see GDP contracting, we see high inflation, and we also see the Federal Reserve is worried about where we could go from here. Ultimately, you have to simply look at the data. You have to be willing to admit the problems and the potential solutions. We're in a recession, regardless of what anyone says, and we have high inflation, and it's likely higher than the official numbers. Lose-lose situation. What you at home have to do is you have to make sure you have a strong balance sheet, you have to optimize your cash flow, and you simply have to try to survive the next 6 to 12 months. Get to the other side, and you earn the right to thrive during the next bull run. But until then, get ready for a bumpy ride.